And the Portuguese had told Columbus on his return from his first voyage that they were aware of Africans leaving the Cape Verde Islands, which is just off Guinea, and going far to the west with merchandise. Now, in this, we have, first of all, the oral tradition of the Native Americans who said that there were black people trading with them in these gold-tipped metal spears. We have the diaries of Columbus stating this, recording this. We have the Portuguese making records of Africans leaving in large boats from the Cape Verde and going far to the west with merchandise.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. There's been a lot of debate and speculation as to whether Africans reached the Americans before Christopher Columbus, and this video will uncover the whole story and we will be talking about this issue. Let us watch this video and get to understand when Africans got to reach the Americas. Let's watch this.
Today I am speaking on discoveries that have been made largely in Mexico over the past century. My talk is entitled African Presence in Ancient America. It's possible for me to cover all the ground in just 1 hour. So I shall concentrate largely on the evidence we have, both physical and cultural, that establishes the connection between Egyptian and American cultures in a very early period, a period about 800 years before Christ. But before I go on to focus on my subject, I want to make you aware of the fact that I am not the first to suggest that there were Africans in America before Columbus. Columbus was the first to suggest it. On his second voyage, Columbus noted in his journal and reported that the natives of Hispaniola, as it was then known, it's now Haiti, Santo Domingo, came to him and told him that black people had come from the south and southeast, trading with them in gold-tipped metal spears. They had come in large boats. Columbus was skeptical, and he sent 2 samples of these boats to Spain, 2 samples of these spears, to Spain to be assayed. They were examined and assayed in Spain, and they were found to have the identical ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloys as metal spears then being forged in African Guinea. The Portuguese were in Guinea since around 1450, when in fact they were attacked by one of the African navies. There was a fight in the Gambia, and the Portuguese had built a fort there, which Columbus, when Columbus's first visit to Africa was in 1484, quite a while before he came to America, he had been at that fort. In fact, he had tried to persuade the Portuguese to finance him to make his trip across the ocean. And the Portuguese had told Columbus on his return from his first voyage that they were aware of Africans leaving the Cape Verde Islands, which is just off Guinea, and going far to the west with merchandise. Now, in this, we have, first of all, the oral tradition of the Native Americans who said that there were black people trading with them in these gold-tipped metal spears. We have the diaries of Columbus stating this, recording this. We have the Portuguese making records of Africans leaving in large boats from the Cape Verde and going far to the west with merchandise. We have the metallurgical evidence in Spain that these trade items, which were supposed to be West African, had been examined and found to be West African. And then on top of that, we have the linguistic evidence, which came later from Leo Wiener, who started work in this field in the 1920s, African, the Discovery of America, 3 volumes. And in it, he points out that the word guanin, which the Indians were using, the Native Americans, that is, were using for these gold-tipped metal spears, came from guani, which is the word for gold in many of the West African languages along that Atlantic coast. And we have, in addition to that, botanical evidence of a connection, because they have found species of cotton in the Cape Verde Islands from which the blacks were coming in their trade with the Native Americans in the Caribbean. They found a species of cotton 30 years before the coming of Columbus. Europeans settling in the Cape Verde Islands took a cotton from Africa which they thought was African, from the African Atlantic coast, and planted it into the Cape Verde, and it was found to be Gossypium hirsutum var. Punctatum, which is not African. In other words, they must have got it. It was an American cotton that grows in the Caribbean and parts of South America. They must have got it from here and brought it back. But not only in this trade, there seem to be things brought over, like the guanine, and there is another item, the almazar, which Columbus's men saw in South America, though Columbus himself did not set foot on South America. On his third voyage, the men from his ship went into South America, though he did not come off the ship. And there are things that have come from America, not only the cotton, they have found maize, American maize in pre-Columbian strata in Africa. They've even found the pineapple at Pompeii. Well, I'm not going to go into that because that doesn't particularly concern us. That could remain a riddle, but there is no riddle about the maize. It is clearly distinguishable from African sorghum. There is no riddle about the cotton. That is a very distinctive cotton that is American. So there was a trade in that period, at least 50 years before Columbus. My concern, however, is not with the late pre-Columbian period, but with contacts made by Africans in a very, very early period, long before Columbus was a twinkle. And we have very hard evidence of this connection and contact. It was about 100 years ago, and by the way, let me say something about the history of this subject, because people are very confused about so many things. And one of the problems we have in the recovery of African history is that most people think that anything that is said has equal weight with anything else. So that if someone said that when the continents were joined, Africans came across to America, and if someone said there was a lost city of Atlantis in the Atlantic, Plato said so, and that is how they came. Many people think that because it's in favor of the thesis, it helps the thesis. It does not. It certainly does not. That there is absolutely no hard evidence for Atlantis at the moment. None whatsoever. The Russians believe it's in the Straits of Gibraltar. Henrietta Mertz believes it's in Mississippi. Some people believe it's off South America. Some people think it's in the middle of the Atlantic. Some people think it's in Bermuda, where they're having trouble with lost planes and ships. Some people think it's a space station. It has nothing to do with hard archaeology. Just let's forget it. One of these days, if they find it, we will talk about it.
Family, I am really enjoying this speech by Dr. Ivan van Sertima, explaining how Africans were able to get into the Americas even before Christopher Columbus. He says in his statement here that Columbus, when he arrived through the second voyage, he was told by the Native Americans, who are Indians, about black people who had come from the south and southeast trading with large boats. They arrived in the Americas with large boats. He was skeptical about this, and he had to start doing his research because he was happy that he had discovered a new land, which was known as the New World, you know. Then he was skeptical and sent samples of the spares to Spain, and they were found to have the same ratio of gold, silver, and copper from the African Guinea. That just shows you that Africans were there before Columbus arrived there. There are some ratios of gold, silver, and copper that were found and proven to be from Africa. You all know that Africa is rich of minerals, you know. Then the Portuguese also told Columbus that they were aware of Africans living Cape Verde Islands, which is close to the Guinea, and are also going with large ships to the west, you know. And these are just some of the proof that just shows you that Africans were the first people to go to the US even before the Columbus, to the Americas rather. And there are many proofs And right now, some of these proof that can easily let you know that Africans got to the Americas earlier are diaries of Columbus stating that Africans were there before him, Then there are other things like the Native Americans, who are the Indians, who also say that they traded with the black people. Then the Portuguese records, of course, of Africans leaving the Cape Verde with large ships, with large boats going to the west. Then there are also mythological evidences from Spain where the items were examined and found to be from West Africa. Then the last proof was the botanical evidences, where a species of cotton that is only found in the Americas was found in Africa. Then they wondered, how did these Africans get to know about this plantation? That just proves that they were in the Americas. They know it from going to the Americas. And this story has always brought a lot of debate online and a lot of speculation as to whether Africans were indeed the first people to get into the Americas, apart from the natives themselves. Actually, 3 key points to look into in this debate. The first point is Olmec civilization and artifacts. Some scholars like Ivan van Sertima, in his book They Came Before Columbus, argues that the Olmec civilization, which existed in present-day Mexico from about the 200 BC and 400 BC, and African influences. The theory is partially based on the presence of large stone heads with facial features that some interpret resembling those of African people. We've seen those, how do we call them, statues, those big statues, and most of those stone carvings represent the faces of the black men, the African people. That just proves, or rather gives the idea that black people were here before. Then, however, most mainstream archaeologists and historians argue that the Olmec heads representations of the indigenous people of the region are not evidence of African contact. Then the second point to look at is the ancient ships and navigation. There is evidence that the ancient Africans, particularly from regions like Egypt and Carthage, were skilled sailors. Some suggest that African mariners might have reached the Americas by following ocean currents. Despite this, there is no concrete archaeological evidence, like artifacts or settlements, that supports the idea of sustained contact or settlements by Africans in the Americas before Columbus. And the third point to look into is the Mali Empire and the Mansa Abubakar II. There are accounts of that Mansa Abubakar II of Mali Empire, who ruled in the early 14th century, may have launched expeditions into the Atlantic. Some theorists suggest that these expeditions could have reached the Americas. This claim remains speculative, as no definitive evidence has been found to support the idea that these expeditions reached the New World. The area around the Americas was known as the New World. Overall, while it's intriguing topic and there are theories that suggest the possibility, the mainstream historical consensus is that there is no definitive proof of African contact with the Americas before Columbus. But from the words of the doctor here, he explains well the evidences that he thinks supports that Africans were there before Columbus. Let us continue listening to him.
And the same thing is true of the continents being joined. That's absolute rubbish. When the continents were joined, there were no human beings on earth. That is a far geological time, long before the appearance of Homo sapiens. That has absolutely nothing to do with this. We have got to be very careful in the presentation and in the examination and exploration of these subjects, to be extremely cautious, even to the point where evidence is presented as the thesis which you have to reject. Let me give you an example. Ramesses II developed an infection of his leg. How marvelous that Africans, years after, when one develops an infection in the leg, it causes a stir. They had to go and see how they could stop this infection. And when they opened up his belly, they found in the wrappings in his belly, they found tobacco. Now that is extraordinary, because people have insisted, most scientists have insisted, that tobacco comes from America. How on earth did it get in the belly of Ramesses II? Now that would appear to help my thesis. It does not. Because first of all, I have pointed out in my book that there were two types of tobacco. The Africans had their own tobacco and Americans had their own tobacco. And that even without contact, that tobacco could have got into Ramesses II's belly, because nobody has taken the courage yet to test the tobacco to see if it is truly American. It may turn out to be African in origin. I pointed out that the word tobacco is not used at all in America for the plant. No American tribe uses tobacco for the tobacco plant. They use tobacco for the pipe. They used tobacco for the act of smoking, which was alien to them. As Schweinfurt has pointed out in The Heart of Africa, that the Africans devised more ingenious contrivances for smoking, which was new to the American. Only Caciques, the Indian chiefs, smoked. That was a late development in history, because people did not use tobacco for smoking, neither the Africans nor the Americans. Tobacco was used as a medicine. It could be chewed. It could be used to create this smoke, and the smoke was pushed through the nose, or through the mouth, or through the anus, or through the vagina, through an orifice in the body, in order to clean out and soothe the affected parts of the body. So smoking is a recent invention, and we have evidence to suggest that it developed in Africa. And the reason why the Americans were using smoke words, not just tobacco and the tawa, taba words, but even Julie, Jemba, a whole range of smoke words from Africa find their way through South American parts of the world, and they are not Mexican words at all. They're not Mexican in origin at all. They're not South American in origin.
Family, we have heard from Dr. Ivan van Sertima trying to explain to us why he believes that black people of African origin were the first people to reach the Americas before Christopher Columbus. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel for amazing content around black history, black stories in Africa and in the diaspora. I'd also appreciate if you like this video, so that it can be recommended to your friends and family, and also comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if let me know if you share the same thought as let me know if you share the same thought as Dr. Ivan, or rather you just have a whole different analogy of the same story, and I'll be so grateful if we learn together. So guys, thank you so much. See you all in my next video. Goodbye for now.